previous oath.
Thank you.
And the re-examination will continue. We're going to start with you, Mr. Skibi. Are you ready to go? Yes, please do.
Good afternoon, Doctor.
Good afternoon, Council.
Dr. Kinoshi. We are representing the third group set out in the terms of reference. The group, the third group is the so-called, is described as the life Esidimeni mental health care users who survived and their families.
Yes, Council.
Yes. In your evidence, you mentioned that you. Thank you. In your evidence, you mentioned that you joined the department, or you were seconded in February when you joined the current position where you are.
Yes, as Councillor, yes, I joined the department on the 8th of February this year.
Yes. Before you joined on the 8th of February, where were you?
I've been the CEO, the Chief Executive Officer of Steve Biko Academic Hospital in Tshwane.
Thank you.
I'm still appointed there, but seconded to this position of HOD, yes.
So in this position, you are still appointed as acting
head of the department, yes.
Acting head,
because yes.
All right, thank you. So when this tragedy was announced, you were at Tshwane. You are still at Tshwane, but in Gauteng province.
That is true, Council, yes.
All right. So, in actual fact, you arrived before, or did you come before this current MEC now?
The current MEC, Dr. Gwen Ramkopa, was sworn in 2 days before I joined. She was sworn in on the 6th of February, and I was transferred into this position on the 8th of February.
All right, thank you. So, you mentioned in your testimony further that there are NGOs which are working together or contracted with the Department of Social Services, Social Development.
That is true, Council, yes.
Yes. How is your relationship with or are you involved as a department of, are you rendering any support between those contracting department?
Council, the Department of, that is the Gauteng Department of Social Development, is another department within Gauteng provincial government, providing social services to the people of Gauteng. But they also have NGOs to which they are contracted, or which they have contracted. They've contracted some NGOs to provide some services for them. And some of the services they provide, we share as Gauteng Department of Health with them. So we have since formed a team of managers who together manage and ensure that our patients in NGOs, especially NGOs that are co-licensed. There are NGOs which have a license with social development and with the Department of Health at the same time. So we managed them together after I met with the head of the Department of Social Development in April this year.
Thank you. When you started, you mentioned further that not all the 27 NGOs were closed down after this tragic incident was announced.
And that is true, Council.
Are you able to state which ones, which were remained, were not closed down?
Yes, if I refer to my notes, I should be able to say so.
Certainly.
Yes.
Yes, you can.
You are referring to those that cited in the report of the ombuds and yet are not closed.
Yes, they are
Okay.
cited as
I will attempt to do that. You want me to mention them by name?
precisely.
I'll
yes.
do that. Yes, I'll start with the ones that have our patients still there, but those are the ones whose relatives refuse us permission to remove their loved ones.
And
And Anani,
Are you about to count out?
yeah,
How many are they?
okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I've got 7 on this list. I've got 7 on this list, and it's Anani, it's Huitsi, in Dolphin Acres, it's Little Aiden, actually that's 6. It's Mosejo, it's Saint Michel Home, and it's Udirile. I think there are 6. Why I am correcting myself from 7 to 6 is that Huitsi Mudimo, although it still has one of the former life Esidimeni patient with them, there's the one in near Carltonville. Huitsi Mudimo was not mentioned in the Ombudsman's report, although it had former life Esidimeni patients with them. So they had about 15 at the time. We've removed the others, and then 1 remained. So I've mentioned those 6 that are mentioned but still have our patients in them.
So in your testimony, when you are answering questions, you meant questions by the Chair, Justice Moseneg, you mentioned that after your arrival, I take that it was after the 8th of February this year, you used to assist other NGOs to take food because they were struggling to feed or to provide food to the patients.
That is true, Council. We did that in more than one NGO that did not have resources to take care of our people in them. So between us arranging alternative accommodation and that time, we had to make sure that the patients are taken care of. Some were moved into our hospitals, our acute hospitals temporarily before being moved to appropriate arrangements, and others were fed and clothed where they were. And we prioritized those particular NGOs where patients were not safe to move patients from those first, and then those that were better, we moved them later. So there was proper planning of which ones do we start with when we started moving patients.
Yes. So what plans did you establish to make sure that those NGOs, the patients, they are properly looked after, taken care of? Getting food, medication, etc.
Yes, and being examined. We had doctors going to see them. We had psychiatrists going to assess them. We had mental health care nurses going to see them as well in the NGOs to make sure that they are safe and to make sure that they are all identified. So there was a process of identifying each and every person and actually providing name tags for each one of them. And we knew that to move 820 people in 1 month would be dangerous. So we did not want to repeat what had happened earlier by moving too many people too quickly. And that's why we planned it over a 3-month period, rather. It was the quickest we could do. But that was part of the planning that got into moving them. We had to check what resources we have, create files for them. As I've already stated, not all NGOs, actually most NGOs did not have proper files, records for each and every one of them, and we had to create files, print files for each and every one as we moved them as well.
Thank you. You know, that's why initially I referred you to the working relationship between your department or the support that you could be providing to the two contractual the NGOs which are contracted with the Department of Social Services. While the Ombuds was busy investigating with his report in this matter, at the Eastern Cape, it was on the verge that 2 frail care centers were about to be closed down. If it was not the intervention of the legal team of our office, Legal Aid South Africa at Eastern Cape, where they had to lodge an application to stop, to interdict the Department of Social Development from closing down those 2 health care centers. So now we all, you will understand that it is better to be proactive than to react once a tragedy has happened. That's why I'm pointing to you that if you are not providing more support on those to the social development and those NGOs, something similar to this might happen. So can you confirm that? I know you are not a prophet. You cannot predict what will happen tomorrow. Can you assure that government will take steps to prevent the tragedy like this to happen again?
I think not only Gauteng Department of Health, but government as a whole, actually society as a whole in the country have been awakened to issues of mental health care in the country. Even people who are not involved in government now know about mental health illnesses more after the life Esidimeni tragedy than before. So I'm sure as South Africans we will never allow this to happen again. And we as Gauteng Department of Health are of the same view as well. So we will not be alone. We will be supported by the whole country in making sure that never again will such a tragedy happen.
So those NGOs where you return the patients who were moved from Life Esidimeni during this marathon project, are they fully capacitated now?
The ones where some of the 31 patients are still there?
Yes.
Yes. They are assessed on a regular basis. And contact with the family, with their families has not stopped. And we have said to their families that if at any one time they would love their loved ones to be relocated, they should indicate that, and we will do that. And I should say that the initial number was more than 31 who remained. And about 5 or 6 have already, in the last few months, requested us to come back and relocate their patients to either Esidimeni or to Selby Park Hospital, and we've done so. So interaction with the families and the owners and managers of the NGOs is continuous.
Thank you. Those who were discharged from Life Esidimeni after this or during this this marathon project, did you make any follow-up about their progress with regards to their whether they are receiving medication or they are taken care of or what?
Yes, we are in contact with most of them. We know that the number is 393 who are at home, who are discharged home and are outpatients. 59 of them we try to contact just to to make sure that they are getting medication, they're taken care of, whatever. So we don't have proper addresses for them. But the rest, most of them we are in contact with them. We tell with their families at least, and we inform their families that if there's anything, they must let us know, and we will readmit the patients. And I should mention that one was readmitted this morning, one of the patients who are at home, after I received a call yesterday evening from a relative, and we responded. And actually, I wanted to send emergency services yesterday evening to collect the patient and take them to a hospital. And they said, no, you can do so at 6 a.m. And at 6 a.m. this morning, our EMS was at their door. We collected the patient, and we've taken the patient to Tambo Memorial Hospital this morning for stabilization and for proper assessment and diagnosis made, and is being taken care of. But this is what I'm just saying it to demonstrate to you that we are in contact with them, and we would encourage all of them, the relatives especially, that if they need assistance, they should, we are only a phone call away.
Thank you, Dr. Kinos. That is the reaction that we expect from those who are entrusted to look after the lives of especially more vulnerable. Did you confine yourself only to the recommendations of the health ombud, or you did some extra, or you widened the scope of the recommendations? Is there something extra that you did apart from what was raised in the recommendations of the health ombud?
I think we are doing much more than just what is in the recommendations. We arranged, well, this is Mental Health Care Month. I think that's all we know this month. And you would know that there was a launch by the Department of the Mental Health Care Month in Attersville, in the Anglican Church there on earlier this month. And we are continuing with activities to make people aware, first of all, to destigmatize mental health disease, and also to make people aware of the illness, but also how to care for people who have mental health care, who have got mental health illnesses. And this is going to end up in a summit on the 31st of this month. We call it the Mental Health Summit, in our process of ensuring that the whole community in Gauteng is aware of mental health care illness as something that we need to to be aware of, but also to make sure that people and families who are affected by mental health illness are taken care of, and there are resources where they can turn to.
All right, thank you. When the Health Ombudsman released his report, there were 94 deaths of patients as a result of this project. And this week, when he testified, the number had increased to 118. Today, you are bringing a number, the extra 23 to that 118. So, although today, and also you state that the total number is 141. So, would you agree with me that out of those who were released or discharged or transferred and ended up being taken home, some died, which could increase this number that the figure of that you are giving today?
Council, I think when the Ombudsman released his report on the 1st of February, you are correct, he said 94, but he qualified that in a way to say that this is not the final figure because verifications were still going on. And those verifications were done with our cooperation with the Ombudsman all the way till today. That cooperation continues with the Ombudsman, and that's how we reached the figure of 118 after digging and finding out, especially those who had died in NGOs and were not recorded in the books of Gauteng Department of Health. So we had to go out and look for each and every one of them. The aim was to trace each and every one of the 1,712 people who, according to our records, were moved or relocated from Life Esidimeni during this project, whether they're at home or in a hospital or wherever. And that's how the figure was amended from 94 to 118. I must add that the 23 who've since died, because they did not die in NGOs because of hunger, dehydration, and so on, and I don't want to, Justice, I don't want to raise again the discussion we had earlier on. Although we are subjecting them to inquest purposes and we are reporting them to the police, most of them were not housed in dangerous NGOs like in the past. So they passed on in hospitals, most of them, as we could see, most of the 23, and they had natural illnesses that we know, but we just want to make sure that there is reassurance that they didn't die of anything else, or the etiology of their illnesses had nothing to do with their having stayed, having been part of this project. And that's why we are continuing to report to the police. So it is true that people at home also may die because death is natural. So the reason why we want to keep track of them, even those that are at home, and would wish they could come on a monthly basis at least to as outpatients to our clinics and our hospitals, is exactly to keep track of them so that if any of them passes on, we will know about it. Council, it's a long way of answering your question.
Well,
but
Doc, indeed it's a long way. I was just about to say, yes. Doctor, the question was, could more people have died after your count? The answer could be yes or no.
The way we've worked with it, we would want to know it and record it, and we don't have any others except those who got ill and then got rushed to our hospitals and died in our hospitals, and we've got
Yes.
records of
On
those.
your count, 23 is it's the number.
That is the number.
Yes. There are also questions.
That's the number that we have, and if there's anything else different, I think we would like to know about it and discuss it.
You've got your answer, Council.
Yes,
23 is it.
23 is it.
Yes.
But it's not satisfactory in a way. Like Justice Musinege has just indicated, the answer could be yes or no. It could be more than 141. Can you say yes or no, Doctor?
It could be.
Yes. Thank you.
And we're talking about people who were moved from Life Esidimeni on account of the marathon project.
That's correct.
Yes, we always have to keep it within the boundaries.
Thank you, Justice. But despite this big number or large number, we've got 2 senior officials, or should I, if I may add, the former executive head. But I'm mindful of the fact that police are doing some investigation. But for now, there's no one who has been charged with anything. Can you clarify? Do you have any comment with regards to that?
There were people who were charged, and there were people where sanctions have been given. Besides, you mentioned
I think
besides the
counsel
2
means
officials,
criminally
there's
charged.
nobody else who is criminally charged.
But my colleague will take it further at this point, the one for the 3 families, and it has also been canvassed by my colleague. So, is there any plan that any measure that you put in place with regards to the level of medication? You know, there are different levels of medicines which may be found at the district, regional hospital, and at tertiary training. In other words, there are levels, those patients who receive medication at the 3rd level, which is one at the tertiary training or at regional hospital. Medication may not be found at the primary health care level.
Counsel, why don't we ask the witness so we get answers? You could ask them, are there levels of medication to be found at different points of service? Stop. And the witness will say yes or no. He knows it all. He has been a doctor for nearly 40 years.
Yeah.
He knows quite a lot, I can assure you. So just ask him the questions, then the answers will come.
Yes, thank you, Justice Mosne. You know about those different level, doctors?
Yes, I do, Counsel.
How many levels then we are talking about here?
There are 3 levels, Counsel.
Tell them which are those levels, and they name them. And the medicines.
You see, the levels correspond with the levels of care in the health system in the country. And there's a primary health care level, which is the clinics and so on. And then there's a hospital level and of essential medicine list. They're called essential medicine list, for short EML. And they used to call them EDL, essential drug list, but we've moved away from calling them drugs. We call them medicines. So essential medicine list. There's a primary health care package. There's a hospital, but then there's also a tertiary a level 1, which is only available in academic hospitals, the central hospitals. Those are medicines that are used by super specialists.
You see, counsel, he knows it all.
I see.
So then you can go to your next question.
Thank you. So, but somebody who is in a critical, like in a mental institution, can he or she get medication at the primary health care level?
Yes, they can. You see, medicines for mental health care are different because there are many mental health care illnesses. So there are those that need, that can be treated at clinic level, at primary care level. There are those that need tertiary care in a central hospital, tertiary hospital, and those would be medicines for those kinds of illnesses as well. So you get mental health care drugs, medicines can be also at the primary level, at hospital, and at tertiary level as well.
Yeah. But somebody who has been discharged, can he just go over the counter at the primary health care level and get medication there?
The medication has to be prescribed, and it will be available at that level, at the level at which it is prescribed.
Okay. So you've mentioned that you only came into the picture or in this in March. So are you aware that some
On the 8th of February.
on the 8th of February? Thank you, Justice Musane. You came into the picture on the 8th of February. Are you aware that some patients were sent home and those NGOs where they were taken to, they were not fed, then they did not have shoes, and then I mentioned yesterday, if I may refer to one of them. Her relative, Lesego Balui. She described the manner in which she found her sister, Julia Khal. She described that when she found her at Takalan NGO, she was barefoot. It was in winter, in May, and it was very cold, in May of 2016. And she didn't have much food to eat. What would you agree that it's a gross, but it was just a mental institution. It was in a hospital where she was supposed to be taken care of. Would you agree that was a gross violation of?
Justice, I didn't get the question clearly.
Would you want to repeat the question?
The question is, would you agree with me that, or even if I put it blindly, so that the manner in which these patients during this marathon project were treated, it was grossly in violation of the Constitution and Mental Health Care Act? Would you agree with me?
Yes, I would agree.
And now, if you agree, you also agree that there should be, at the end of this commission, should be something of compensatory, so that it deters other public officials to act or to execute their duties properly in a professional manner. Or you leave that to the chair of the committee?
Yes, I was just about to say that you're now taking my work and giving it to the good doctor. Do you have any further questions?
No further questions. No further questions.
You have none?
Yeah.
Well, I do have questions in your area of interest and concern. What impact would deaths of fellow patients have on a survivor?
Justice, it could be traumatic for various reasons, especially if the death happens in the presence of the survivor. It is not a nice situation to experience, and so it could have a deep and negative impact, especially if it's somebody you know, and so on.
Yes. And if you were afflicted with mental illness, would that be any worse than otherwise?
Yes, Justice, because some of our mental health care patients are helpless on their own, so they would need there are those who need assistance, and so I think they need even more assistance than all of us.
Let's postulate a situation like the one that obtained, for instance, at Precious Angels, where many people who lived within the same space died. What do you say about that? What kind of impact would that have on those who survive?
Justice,
particularly in a narrow space where they would have noticed that their numbers were diminishing.
Justice, it could have a negative effect, and I agree. And I assume some of them would need counseling to assist them to get over it, but it would be difficult for the reasons I've said. Yes, I agree.
Now, moving people without notifying their families is something that the Ombudsman tells us about, and it deprecates quite deeply. Do you agree with that, that it increase levels of trauma and stress if mentally ill people were moved to places where their families could not immediately know about?
Yes, Justice, it would not be an advisable thing to do, especially when the family wants to visit their loved one and they don't know where the loved one is. They have to struggle to find the loved one. The loved one is used to being visited, and suddenly there are no more visits in a strange place. And I think that's why we learned from the process. And this time around, when we move them again, and we make sure that their families are involved in the process.
We were told, and we can infer it from the Ombuds's report, that even survivors were moved without script. So presumably they would move from Esidimeni, get into one angel place or the other, and find that there's no prescription for them.
Yes. Justice, I have read those stories, yes.
We were told that the mere moving of somebody who's mentally ill without appropriate preparation is in itself quite traumatic. Do you agree with that?
I agree fully, Justice, and that's why even the move this time, we made sure that it is probably the last move that we do, and avoided moving them too many times. There are reports of the effect, constant, repeated moving of such mental health care users, what effect it has on their health.
Of course, the agreement contemplates that that category of patients would also be entitled to equitable redress that includes compensation. Is there anything you want to say about that at this stage? Will it be something that is fair, that is necessary?
Justice, I agree with the Health Ombud in Resolution 17, where he recommends compensation. And the compensation, if you read Recommendation 17, is not limited to only where there has been death.
When I ask about numbers in relation to survivors, I was referred to you, another rugby pass, I think. But how many survivors are there? And how do we determine them?
Those who are in our hospitals, these state hospitals, we have the numbers. In Cullinan Care Rehab Center, Sterkfontein, Vescopis, and indeed those who are still acutely ill in our acute hospitals, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 hospitals, I still have 1 or 2. Even those who are in the NGOs and the ones in the Life Esidimeni, the 2 facilities of Life Esidimeni that we've contracted, and 1 Selby Park Hospital, we have the numbers, and they amount to 1179. So those
1179.
1179 survivors are currently in institutions. But
in institutions.
I'm including NGOs. Remember I said
Yes.
31 are in NGOs?
Fair enough, yes.
So if we add those 31 NGOs.
And these would be patients who were part of the marathon, what I'll call displacement.
Yes, I'm referring to them only, actually.
Yes.
For
1179.
1179. Those are there's the stat that I have. And the stat of those who are at home is, when I counted last, it was 393. I need to qualify these numbers. And earlier on, a few minutes ago, I did relate how one of the former Life Esidimeni patients who was at home, we had to rush to hospital this morning, to Tambe Memorial. So they moved from home to hospital and back home and so on. So if I say 393 today,
Yes.
next week, this time maybe 392 or more, or slightly
Yes,
more.
no, you had alerted us.
Yes, yes.
But 393 would be the most, yeah.
The number of mental health care users who are currently at home, who some were discharged primarily from Life Esidimeni straight home, others went through to NGOs or to Sterkfontein or whatever, and when stabilized, whenever they are stabilized and their level of functionality is determined by psychiatrists, the psychiatrists decide whether this person can be treated in conjunction with their family, of course, whether this patient can be treated at home on an outpatient basis or should be in an institution.
Now, HOD, can we get a schedule? Would the schedule have names, let me start there, of survivors?
Yes.
It would.
We can give that?
I ask you to prepare a schedule of survivors. 1179, I understand it's a bouncing number. In institutions, and 393 in homes of their own or of their relatives. If we could have that schedule handed to Council for State, and it could be made available to everybody and to us at some stage. There's no real hurry, but in the next couple of days, it would be most helpful.
Justice, we can do that. I have given a preliminary list of these patients to our council, our legal team, but we will clean it up and provide it as soon as possible.
Thank you so much.
I was looking
Most
at
grateful.
it.
Council, Groenewald.
Thank you very much, Justice. Doctor, I know it's late in the week and I'll try to be as quick and thorough as I can. Just to start off, I'd just like to hand you three documents for the sake of convenience, I've just marked them A, B, and C. So if we can start off with that. You've made mention of the list. We had the 118 patients, then we had the 23. We indicated earlier in this week that we are representing the family members of a deceased patient who is not on this list. So document C, document marked C. The subject of this document is Cullinan Care and Rehabilitation Center report around transferring of patients from Life Esidimeni. Do you know this document? Are you familiar with this document?
I have seen this document. I'm familiar with it.
You have seen this document. I see it's also addressed to yourself.
Yes.
I'd just like to take you to page 20 of that document. Page 20 of the document, there you will see in bold, Cullinan Care and Rehabilitation Center death stats 2016 to April 2017. My apologies, Justice.
No, that's fine. We're okay, thank you. I've been helped out.
Then you will see there you have full names, ID number, admitted from, date admitted in CCRC, deceased, place of death, and comments. Now at the bottom there is Khotso Mpofu. Now, we are representing the family members of Khotso Mpofu. You will note there that date admitted, 15 April 2011, deceased 3 August 2016. 3 August 2016, you agree with me that is within the control period for the purpose?
I do agree with you.
You agree with
Counsel.
Thank you. And then just for the sake, the comments there. Admitted in CCRC, then discharged to Sia Badinga in satisfactory condition and readmitted back to CCRC in an extremely emaciated condition, finally died in Mamelodi Hospital as a referral from CCRC. This patient's name does not appear on the list of 118 deceased persons. Would you agree with me, and do you accept that we can include his name on this list of 118?
Counsel and Justice, I was asked by somebody inquiring last night about Khotso Mpofu. I agree that he is not on our list of 118. And I can explain, Justice, because the patient was never at Life Esidimeni, and that is the reason why. But we should remember that the list of 118, as the Ombud explained on Monday and Tuesday when he was here, consists of 108 former Life Esidimeni patients and 10 who were never at Life Esidimeni, but there was an agreement that their deaths were associated with the project, and that there was an agreement to include those 10, and they are regarded as being Gauteng Marathon Project associated deaths, and they add up to the 118. If the death of Khotso Mpofu, there's an agreement that Justice, that it falls within that scope. I'm not averse to discussions about him being included as well, if it's the same as the other 9. There were 9 others who are included in the 118 who were also former CCRC patients, and 1 from Takalani who are included in the 118. And if there's sufficient evidence and agreement, I am not averse to including him.
Well, sir, according to me, and subject to my colleagues not objecting to what I'm going to say, is that Mr. Khotsu Mpofu falls within the category of persons to whom this arbitration relates and to whom the remedies that apply in terms of the terms of reference apply. So I submit that he must be included in the list.
If the submission is to the hearing, I think I would leave it to justice to
You see,
to pronounce.
we have evidence before us, HOD, from the Ombud that the patients were discharged from CRC on account of people who came through from life Esidimeni. And to make room and space for them, they were discharged to Siabadinga. And subsequently they died. That's in the case of Mr. Mpofu. Do you know about that? Are you aware of that evidence?
Justice, I am aware of that.
And they are related to life Esidimeni in the sense that they were discharged at CRC where on the probabilities they would have survived. But once they went to Siabadinga, then obviously there were adverse circumstances and they died. In that sense, there are people, patients related to the Life Esidimeni Marathon project. That's a proposition
Yes.
that I'm inquiring. Would you agree with that?
Yes, Justice, and as I was saying, his circumstances seem to be similar to the other 9 of CCRC, who I shouldn't say we as a department have previously agreed that they be included. And because the circumstances described here are similar, I do agree that we can include this particular person.
Thank you. Counsel, you may proceed.
Thank you very much, Justice. Thank you, Doctor. Seeing that we're on this document, perhaps I can just take you to page 4. In fact, Life Esidimeni project is in bold discharge and admission process. There, in fact, it's recorded what the Justice has just been confirmed, and which you also have now been confirmed. That is stated there, that was the object. You need to make place for the patients from the Life Esidimeni project, so you need to discharge some of these individuals. Now, sir, if I can take you then to document B. Document B.
Well, call it document B provisionally. Obakeng will be prepare a schedule of all the documents handed in so far, and they will all bear a ELAH1 to whatever. But for present purposes, that should be fine. But we will number them chronologically and ask all counsel to use the number sequentially on the schedule so that we don't have a flood of documents which are unnumbered.
My apologies.
Yes, none,
Justice.
it's fine. Please proceed, counsel.
If we can just turn to page 2. Page 2. Just the next page. Sorry. I just want to get to. You will see there. This is an email from Pieter de Jager. It was sent on Tuesday, June 28, 2016. It was sent to Kwidini Mashlangu at gauteng.gov.za, Kanyisa, to a number of individuals. The subject there is CCRC and Siabadinga, NGO, urgent feedback required. 28 June 2016. So I just quickly want to take you through this document. Now, Mr. De Jager will come and testify, and he was a committee member, Siabedinga committee member. In this document, he describes and he says, I'm a Siabedinga NGO committee and therefore representing the parents and the guardians of all the patients in the care of the current NGO Siabedinga under management of Diane Wheeler. We write to express our concern over reports relating to the discharge and potential combining with another NGO on the same premises. We have many concerns and we need urgent feedback with regards to below. Here Mr. De Jager sets out, sorry, I just need to point out this letter was also addressed to the MEC, Ms. Mashlangu, Dr. Selebano and Dr. Manamela. In terms of this correspondence, Mr. De Jager points out a number of concerns. And I wish just to highlight a few. He firstly confirms that, listen, there has been a lease agreement entered into between CCRC and Siabedinga for at least 4 wards to accommodate 73 patients, paragraph 2, and the use of office space. The lease agreement commenced on the 1st of May 2016 and is valid for duration of 2 calendar years. It says the lease agreement was entered legally on departmental documentation with signatures of the CCRC CEO and Siabedinga witnesses, and then he sets out what's the costs in respect of the rent there. Paragraph 4, it says, upon inspection 2 weeks ago by the members of the committee, it was found that there exists minimal infrastructure for the proper care of these patients that cannot fend for themselves, as they have been certified to be taken under the care of the Department of Health. The kitchen has a stove with 2 plates to prepare food for 73 patients. They had 1 small washing machine to do all laundry and linen, etc. of the patients. Since approximately 3 weeks ago, the patients and the other organizations started providing food. Paragraph 6, Dr. Manamela called a meeting to discuss this on the 13th of June at the Cullinan facilities and did not arrive as scheduled. We were all waiting for her appearance, but to no avail. She then summoned Diane, the CEO, to the CCRC for a meeting that same day at the department office at 12. She also said that she does not want to speak to either the parents, guardians, or the media. Now, this is the person responsible, Dr. Manamela, person responsible, the director responsible for these institutions, and the person that was responsible for the placement of these individuals, if I'm correct.
You are correct.
I'm correct. They don't want to speak to the parents. They don't want to speak to the parents, and
of course, you are yet to put the question.
Indeed so, Justice. I just need to take the witness through a few documents. There's 3 other documents,
Okay.
and then my questions will
And then
follow.
your questions will follow. Okay.
At paragraph 10, Dr. Manamela has proposed a meeting this coming 1st July, Friday at 12, to discuss the placing of the second NGO on Siabedinga premises with Diane and CEO of CCRC. Now, Mr. De Jager confirmed that this meeting never took place, and Dr. Manamela never came to address the family members. You don't have any knowledge of this, do you?
Council, I don't have any knowledge of this.
Okay, thank you. Now, in that, he sets out, we need the following answers to be addressed and deemed urgent. Now, he sets out there 10 issues that they want Dr. Manamela and the MEC to clarify to them. Now, None of this has been done. Now, then I want to refer you to volume 8, the files there, file 8.
The email
Sorry.
is today's email, but when was the document prepared? Or June 28th?
Justice, yeah, you will just note this is just sent to us. This email sent to us, so you will see the at the bottom there,
But the correct date would be which?
28 June 2016.
Thank you.
Thank you, Justice. So volume 8 at pages 2771.
Thank you.
2771.
Thank you.
Volume 8.
Thanks.
Thank you, Doctor. Are you there?
Yes, I'm there.
All right. Are you familiar with these documents? These are minutes of meetings between the Department of Health delegation, Weskoppies Hospital staff working at Cullinan Care and Rehabilitation Center for clarifying the reasons for their delegation. Are you familiar with
No,
this document?
I'm not familiar with this document.
You're not familiar with this document. Okay. Do you have any reason we received these documents from the representatives of the state? Do you have any issue to dispute the contents of these documents?
No, I don't have any reason to dispute it.
Okay. Now, I just want to highlight again some of the disturbing issues herein. We note there the date is the 5th of July 2016. The venue is there at Cullinan. The chairperson is Dr. Mfinyane. Do you know Dr. Mfinyane?
Yes, Dr. Mfanyana is one of the deputy director generals in the Department of Health currently.
Currently.
And he was there even last year, 2016, yes.
Is he still in the Department of Health?
He is still in the department.
Can you confirm whether any disciplinary action is pending against Dr. Mfinyane in respect of this program?
Council, no.
No.
There is no pending disciplinary action currently.
Thank you. Now, Dr. Mfinyane is the chairperson here of these meetings. Now, as indicated, this is a meeting with the Weskoppies Hospital staff working at Cullinan. They say in the reductions were done, the Weskoppies Hospital staff were thanked for helping at Cullinan Care and Rehabilitation Center. The department indicated that they recognize that there are no resources to work on at the allocated units. They were also thanked for raising a concern to work with no proper paperwork. You agree with me? Two major issues I identified here.
Yes, that's true, Council.
One, no resources. Two, no paperwork. And Dr. Mfinyane, informed of that on the 5th of July, is part of that. Now, the Weskoppies, concerns from the Weskoppies staff, they actually list a number of issues. Patients identification, medicine cups, emergency medicine, laundry, infection control, glucose test machine not available in the units, gloves are not available. One of the two clerks were requested to assist in the unit. Then the letter from the legal department that state that the staff will not be held accountable for any irregularities that as they were asked to come and assist in the unit that is not complying with the basic standards of service. If we turn to page 2773, Justice, I'm getting to my answers.
You're going to go to the questions, is
After
it?
questions, sorry, I've
Up
given
to
my
now,
answers.
This has been a reading class.
Yes.
You've got to go to questions
Yes.
sometime.
Now again, this is minutes of a meeting between the Department of the Health Delegation and Cullinan Care and Rehabilitation Center, organized labor.
On which page are you now? We've
Two-
just,
2773, Justice.
I've got that, thank you.
Just two issues I want to highlight here. Again, it's the 5th of July, same day, same chairperson. Here, chairperson indicated that the delegation is here on instruction of the HOD, as there were challenges with the NGOs. From last week, there have been series of visits by the province, including the MEC. There were 2 NGOs in the Cullinan Care and Rehabilitation Center. There are issues with Siabadinga NGO regarding the logistics of the government requirements. There were issues related to the status of the NGO. The following paragraph, while legal and HR department are still solving other issues, the service must be protected, as emphasized by the chairperson. The patients could have been in the care of Siabadinga, but they are the responsibility of the department. Now, I'm not going to take you through all of the further issues, but it's quite clear that the labor has asked a number of questions and clarifications and so on, but it's not clear whether or not they received an adequate answer. What we know here is that the MEC visited the department, and we know that the HOD was involved, and we know that Dr. Mfunyane was involved, and we know that it has been recorded that in these circumstances there are no medicines. The question then, will you agree with me that any person that is in charge of an organization, that is informed of the circumstances within the organization, the circumstances at the NGO, the circumstances at the CCRC, that person must surely have foreseen that there will be consequences for the patients. Will you agree?
Councillor, I agree fully that the situation as described should raise alarm and be corrected as soon as possible. I'm not sure whether it was done at the time.
So you are currently the CEO of Steve Biko, and the question which you've answered, which I just want you to agree with me on, is that a person that's responsible for that, that person who has full knowledge that there's no medicine, that person must surely foreseen that there will be consequences. And that person must to some extent reconcile them with that consequences in light of the fact that nothing has been done about it. Wouldn't you agree?
Councillor, I agree that in a situation where you need medicine, there should be medicine. Where you need gloves, there should be gloves. Where you need any form of tools or therapy that you need for patients, those resources need to be there. As I say, you know, this is now June last year, and I'm in Cullinan, and I'm not sure what happened when these issues were raised, both by staff of Vescopis who were working now at Cullinan, and also now in the second letter by members of labor movements of the unions who are raising similar issues. So I hope the authorities then at the time responded positively and made sure that those resources were available. I can't answer.
The patients or the family members whose loved ones we represent here, they all died subsequent to that. August and October. August and October. So here's July, facts, clear. There's no question about the fact that there is a crisis on hand. No question about the fact that the MEC, all the other senior officials knew about it. Now, I've stressed the point, and I'm going to leave it there, sir, but I just put it to you that those individuals, they must have foreseen that there will be consequences. And they must have...
Through you, Justice,
Yes.
this question has already been answered twice. So the emphasis has really been made. If you can just proceed.
Yes. Council, it is so indeed.
Thank you very
No
much.
amount of repetition would increase the cogency of the issue.
Thank you
It's a
very
point
much.
well made, and I think it has been conceded by the
Yeah.
HOD. And lawyers know what you are doing. You're setting up a basis for a dolus eventualis. And we all are aware of what you are doing. But you've made the point, and the objection is upheld.
Thank you very much, Justice. I will proceed. Now, sir,
You could foresee that people might die. You nonetheless failed to take action to remedy that. And in truth and in fact, people did die. Isn't it? That's the point you're making.
that is exactly
His
the point,
witness
sir.
wasn't there, he wasn't in charge, but you really want his opinion on a matter that you can argue.
Thank you very much, Justice. I will move on. Now, sir, in respect of the accountability issue, because you will agree with me that one of the ways that we will ensure that these family members find closure is if we can show to them and we can persuade them that, listen here, the responsible people have been held accountable. That would be one of the ways, most definitely, how they will get closure. You will agree with me.
Yeah, I would agree with you, Council.
Now, sir, in your testimony, in respect of the individuals that received final written warnings, just like to clarify there, those individuals that received the warnings, final written warnings, they pleaded guilty.
Council and Justice, yes, they did plead guilty. The 6 who received final written warnings.
Now, can you,
counseling.
and there was a formal finding by a chairperson.
Yes, it was an external person. It was a legal person, an advocate who chaired the hearings, and he delivered those sanctions at the end.
Can you just tell us, because I think the family members would just like to know, you know, at a disciplinary hearing, an employer is entitled to ask for a certain sanction. So the employer can, at the disciplinary hearing, say, I'm going to present the facts, I'm going to show that the employee was guilty, but I will ask that in terms of our policy or procedure that the employee be sanctioned with a final written warning or be summarily dismissed or a written warning. Can you state to us and confirm whether or not the department, what sanction did the department requested to be imposed upon these employees?
Council, in disciplinary hearings, in accordance with the disciplinary code in the public service, unlike in a court of law, does not allow the employer to say to the presiding officer that this is the sentence that you should impose. So it was not done in this case. The person leading evidence on behalf of the employer set out what the employee is charged with, and they provided some evidence. Obviously, as accounting officer, I don't sit in those hearings, but the presiding officer did provide a report of his findings and also the rationale for his sanction and the sanction itself as well. So those are the only documents that we are privy to, but there was no saying by the employer representative that this is the sanction that should be imposed.
So, just to confirm, the department did not request the dismissal of these employees.
No, the department did not.
The department did not request the dismissal of the employees. Now, the document marked A, before you, sir, that is the project team that worked on this project. Now, you will see at page 2 there, suggested subcommittees or functional teams. Clinical specialist, mental health unit, infrastructure, finance, budget, SCM, human resources, EMS, DHS, hospital, project officers. Now, all of these individuals, we've been informed by Mr. Mohsen Noge that all of these individuals had a role to play in this project. So it's not only the 7 individuals identified in the Ombudsman's report for possible disciplinary action that were part of this project. Have you conducted any investigation as to these individuals' conduct, their participation in the project, to what extent it was negligent, to what extent it amounted to misconduct, to what extent it was unlawful?
Council, no formal investigations have been conducted in the process, but we are complying and cooperating with the SAPS and SIU, who are investigating the whole matter and are in possession of many documents now, including this one.
Sir, my question is simple. These people, prima facie evidence is that these people were part of a project that was, you know, to use the words, a huge failure isn't sufficient. They were part of it. They had a role to play in this. And I'm asking you from departmental point, criminal, we'll get to the criminal issues now. From a departmental point of view, you haven't even conducted an investigation to establish what was these individuals' roles. What did they do? Is that what you're saying to us?
What I'm saying, Council, is that we are investigating together with the SAPS and SIU. So we're not doing it alone. I agree with you, we're not doing it alone. We're doing it with the other organs of state in this matter. So we are part of it.
I do not, and sir, I do not find your answer to be sufficient. Are you saying to me that, well, we have given, because your evidence was, we have given everything to the SAPS, and we've said to the SAPS, please go and find out who was guilty and who was not guilty, and are you waiting for the SAPS to come and inform you whose conduct was wrong, and then you will institute disciplinary action?
Justice, I did not say that we have given over to the SAPS and SIU. I said we are working with them in this matter. And I have said that there's been numerous interactions with them.
Council, shouldn't the question, though...
So we're doing...
I'm sorry, are you done?
Sorry, Justice.
You complete?
Okay. Now, I was saying we are doing it together rather than handing it over to them. And I think maybe those are the words I used.
Should we make clear what you inquire from the witness? Are you talking about disciplinary action internally, or are you talking about criminal investigation?
My apologies, Justice. I thought I made the question clear. Is that we will get to the criminal issues now. I'm asking you from a departmental point of view. Haven't you even conducted an investigation to determine whether or not these individuals who were part of this project, whether or not they contravened any law, whether policy, whether or not their actions in respect of this project amounted to misconduct, was unlawful?
No, as a department, we did not, we have not instituted any investigations on our own. And maybe I need to emphasize that. And I did say earlier that what we have been busy with from March this year, saving lives, concentrating on saving lives and stabilizing the situation. And we have been working with other bodies to do exactly what you are requesting, Council.
So I'm just going to put it to you that for these families, I mean, how are they supposed to find closure if a number of individuals who was intricately involved in this project has not even been investigated by the department? But let's leave it at that. Sir, we know now that that you have provided the SAPS with the documents, you've requested them, and you've set up a team. You know that number of 35 dockets were opened. You know that the number of autopsy reports is busy or on the point of finalizing. From the family's point of view, we don't know whether or not, in respect of which patient this is. You know, some of the family members would just like clarity, you know, because one of the family members that we represent, they laid a charge already in October of last year. They requested an autopsy, but they don't know what's the outcome thereof, you know, so and that's quite a frustration. Is it possible that you can make available to us a list to say that the docket was opened in respect of the death of this patient, autopsy reports of these patients are currently finalized, in the process of being finalized, inquest was done in respect of the following patients, so that they just know what is the status of this. Because to some extent, sir, you will agree with me, there is not really clarity on where do we stand.
I thought we had agreed that we would, knowing the police officers involved with the letter handed up, that we would seek to subpoena the police. You remember, with the dockets, with the post-mortem reports, then we can canvass this fully.
Just as if that's the agreement, no,
Yeah.
on this topic, I'm not going to push.
You remember a
any
letter
further.
was handed down by the state in which they had asked the NPA to give them copies of the post-mortem reports.
Yes.
1. 2, to give a report on what they have done, how far they are with their investigations. If you look at the letter which was handed in, and the NPA very tersely replies to say, only a few post-mortems have been done. The day they are all here, we might consider giving you copies. And then they went on to say, well, you must ask the investigating officers how far the investigations are. So the state on its own wrote to the NPA to say, tell us what you have done. And that is the answer you have before you. So clearly, the solution might be, and I think would be to subpoena the police. And they could tell us how far they are.
That will suffice. If we can do that justice, then we can move on. No further questions. Thank you very much, Justice.
Very well, thank you. Counsel?
Thank you, Justice Masanek. Dr. Ginomshi, I have a few questions for clarity on what we have been asked already. You will recall from, I think, part of the last questions we had been asked about by Section 27,
Yes.
about whether are you aware of a legal opinion that had been sought by that is on behalf of your department. Do you still recall that question?
Yes, legal opinions in respect of Council.
In respect of the termination of the project. the
Oh,
life
yes.
Esidimeni.
I did ask, I did
Yes.
answer that one.
Let me take you to a minute of your department dated 10 December 2015. It was way before your time.
Isn't it? Yes.
Yeah,
Yes,
it's just for information purposes.
okay.
It's on bundle 8 of the documents. Specific page is 2740.
Is it this one?
2740.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, Council.
Yeah, it's an 8-page minute which starts from 2736. But the specific passage I want to take you to draw attention to is on page 2740 under item discussions and comments.
Yes, I'm there.
Yeah,
Council.
the first bullet point is it's recorded that it was highlighted that there is a need to consult with legal services to understand the rights that, firstly, its clinicians, it was scratched out on top, is written, patients have. It should be noted that stakeholders will be losing out once the life Esidimeni contract is terminated. Do you see that?
I can see that, Council.
So it seems to me that there was an appreciation on behalf of your department then, or the executive then, that there ought to be some sort of legal advice given to them about the legality of the termination of these agreements, specifically in relation to the rights. How would the rights of the patients be affected?
Yes.
And with that in mind, you would not, if somebody else were to say, now volunteer evidence that indeed this legal opinion was sought, you would not dispute that?
No, if there was evidence that the legal opinion was sought after this, yes, I would not dispute it. Council.
But are you aware of any legal opinion that is on record from the documents which have been furnished to you?
No, I'm not aware of.
You're not
any.
aware of it?
Thank you.
Okay, no, thank you. And that's the part. Then earlier on, you had been asked about the issue of the impact of death on survivors, that it will ordinarily be worse on that is on survivors.
Yes, I did answer when Justice asked me that question.
Yes. And with that being the impact, what are the chances that that is on average, reasonable chances of surviving that impact on survivors? That is, what are the chances of them resuming their normal functioning through counseling or any other interventions?
Council, I think that would not be ordinarily accurately predicted what the effect of counseling is. The main reason why a person needs counseling is to stabilize emotions.
Yes.
And ensure that the person manages to deal with whatever tragedy or negative circumstances that person has experienced, and to assist that person. And the aim, obviously, is to improve the outcome eventually.
I see. And there are chances that some of them might not fully resume their
Okay.
normal functioning.
Council, it is a possibility.
There
It
is a
remains a possibility.
Thank you. And the other issue you had been asked to deal with relates to the death certificates as well as the recorded causes of death and so on. So you still recall? I think it was earlier on in your evidence.
Yes.
Yeah. And specifically, this comes out from which bundles? Let me see. It's 9 and 10, bundles 9 and 10. But you have made mention of the fact that you are precluded from revealing the cause of death in specific patients and so on. I'm not asking you to reveal the cause of death on any of these patients and so on.
Okay.
The clarity which I seek from you is the following. In most of the death certificates I have gone through, as well as the death notices and so on, in some of them it's written under investigations. And what would that mean? Or will this be those which, would this be those cases which were referred for post-mortem
Yes.
examinations?
Yes. If those are Department of Home Affairs documents, they do often write in that fashion on what we regard as death certificates, that under investigation or provisional cause of death, when there's going to be an inquest or post-mortem results are being awaited. And I think to expedite or to facilitate burial to happen, even though the finality is still being sought.
For record purposes, Justice Msaneke, this appears on volume, for interest purposes, volume 10, page 3378. That's one of the cases. There are a number of them which appears there.
Yes.
I have a record of those. There are a number of them. I'll share those with you.
Those would be cases of referrals for postmortem
No, under investigations.
under investigation.
Yes.
I saw those on the schedule, yes.
Yes.
Okay. But of
There's
course,
also page 3363 of the same volume, and there are many other entries that is on the volume. Have you seen that, Dr. Kinosh?
Yes, I have seen that.
You have seen that.
I'm on it.
Yes.
Actually, yes.
but of
and-
course, what specific answer are you seeking to elicit?
I just want to find out whether would these be those cases which have been referred to the SAPS for post-mortem
Yeah,
reports.
my
and so on.
understanding is that everything is under investigation.
Yes.
I think we have been there. I know that knows that single out some,
Yes.
but frankly, aren't the police obliged to go and investigate everything?
Yes, Judge.
Deaths have ensued negligently, if not recklessly, and unlawfully.
Yes.
That is a matter that concerns the law,
Yes.
isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Including criminal law.
It is correct. Just to close off on this point, I see that the causes of death that is in some medical, that is in some death certificate, it's recorded as natural causes, but when you read the death notices, the immediate cause of death is different to what is recorded on the death certificate. What could be the reason for that?
Can counsel refer me to one so that I can?
Let me refer you. Let me see. Volume 10.
Yes, I'm on volume 10 page.
Let's go to volume 10. There's page, let me see. 4. No, I'm sorry. Go to volume 9, page 2943. 2943. 2943, volume 9.
Thank you. Thank you.
Are you there? Under item 77, part 1.
Item 77.
Referring to,
Yes.
referring to psychosis.
Yeah.
Yes.
And on page 2939, that's the
93.
that's your death certificate.
Page
2939.
39.
I'm referring you to this as an example. There are many of them.
Then it says natural
Yes.
death, you mean?
Justice, I wouldn't speak for the Department of Home Affairs, but they often, when the doctors write on the B116 form,
Yes.
a notification of death, they would write a diagnosis, you know, the actual cause of death, the illness that the person was suffering from. But the Home Affairs would then write natural causes. They wouldn't write the actual diagnosis.
The one right.
So if I had diabetes and the doctors wrote that I died because of diabetes, the certificate that I would get, Home Affairs will generate, would say natural causes. I've seen that happening quite often.
Quite often.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. What is it? Let me refer you to volume, I'm alerted to volume 9 as well, page 3174. There's an affidavit there, paragraph 23.
3174.
3174. There's an affidavit there. Paragraph 23. Yes.
Paragraph
23. The first sentence there, it says, Tsepong NGO had funeral insurance for all the patients that was used to pay for Johan's funeral. Is that permitted?
3174.
3174.
What is the question? Just take me to the paragraph, please.
Paragraph 23?
Paragraph 23.
Yes. Will that not be relevant for purpose of your postmortem reports?
I'm not sure what the question is, Council, because I think what they are talking about in that paragraph is that Tsepong NGO, which was an NGO in Atteridgeville, one of those that have been closed, by the way. They say here that the NGO had arranged burial insurance or burial scheme for their clients, if I'm reading it correctly. I'm reading it quite quickly. And that this was what was used for the burial of this particular patient. What is the question?
Is that permitted in terms of your regulations?
No, remember this was an NGO, but burial societies happen everywhere, and they probably would not need the department's permission to arrange a burial society cover for people.
No, I suppose the NGO, here is the cutting end of the question. NGO, which is employed by the department,
Yes.
insures all its patients. That is what the affidavit says. And this relates to a Mr. Bueta who was kept in Atteridgeville and who died. And the complaint of the family member is that this particular NGO, look at paragraph 23,
Yes.
Sepong NGO had a funeral insurance for all the patients. That was used to pay for Johan's funeral.
Yes.
They asked that I sign an affidavit to this effect. I drove to Johan's funeral with the owner at the Sepong NGO. She told me that she had initially wanted to open a youth development center of sorts, but had been told by officials that she should rather open an NGO for people with mental illness, because she would then be funded to take in mental health care users. And I was surprised to learn of this when reading of the Health Ombuds's report on the deaths of the two people. I suppose the cutting end of it is that may NGOs that have an agreement with yourselves insure the patients that are on their premises and therefore be entitled to proceeds out of the insurance. Is that part of the arrangement you have? Is it required of them? And is it lawful?
Justice, this is not part of the current agreements or arrangements that we have with NGOs. It is not clear from this paragraph whether this insurance was a burial society, a kind of cover, or whether it was life cover. And who, in that case, who was the beneficiary if it was life cover. So I think one would need to go into that, whether...
You see, a relative went there from the affidavit,
Yes, yes,
and
sir.
she was told, your relative has been buried. How so? Well, we have a funeral, we have a policy that will be paid out because of his death.
Yeah,
And then required her to cooperate and sign some document.
yes.
Now, she deposes to this and says she's quite surprised and shocked
Yeah.
that her father was insured and that there would be proceeds in the event of his death.
Yes.
Do you find anything improper there? Is this something
Yeah.
that NGOs may do?
Justice, yes, it would be improper if, even if it's a just simple burial society to cover, to assist families to cover it, because that it is done without the knowledge and agreement of the family. Well, and this is a personal opinion, it's not a departmental policy. But if it's a burial cover, it should be done with the agreement of the family.
Ordinarily, who'd bury the burial costs of one of your patients who you might have placed with an NGO?
Normally, the burial cost would be borne by the family, except if the family would like to receive assistance. So as the Department of Health, we do assist families who are not able financially to bury their loved ones. And that is policy that is practiced throughout the country. Normally, NGOs are they're not organizations of the Department of Health, but they are private organizations and they all run differently, Justice. And we as a department contract with them to provide certain services that they will provide to our clients or our patients.
Do you know other instances of ensuring people who are in need of mental care
No.
once they are at institutions such as an NGO?
Justice, I'm not aware of any other such situation, and I think it would need proper investigation, what kind of insurance and whether it was done with a family member or any family members, and whether it's done properly or not, I think.
Yeah. I would imagine the temptation of wanting to insure people you look after, but you'd get paid out only if they died.
No, yeah, that would be life cover. That would be different from.
It raises a very ominous setting, isn't it?
Yes, Justice.
Councillor, you done?
Just one more question on this. You had testified earlier on about the former CEO of the CCRC, that a disciplinary inquiry was postponed previously due to ill health.
Yes.
Do you still recall?
Yes, I remember.
To what date was it postponed?
Council, I can come back to you about which date is the current postponement date now.
Yeah.
But it has been postponed quite a number of times because she has been hospitalized quite often.
Quite often. So would it be correct that it should also not be fit to come and testify at this hearing?
Can Council repeat that?
Would you, by virtue of the fact that the disciplinary inquiry has been postponed several times,
Yes.
would that mean that should also not be able to attend these proceedings?
To attend to
This one?
here.
Yeah.
You mean attend as a witness?
As
As
a
a
witness,
witness, yeah.
yes.
No, I would not know. I wouldn't have to know her current state of health as it is now.
You can't
Council.
comment.
We can find out.
No.
It's not something.
Are
that
you
we can't
aware
find
whether
out.
we are finished with medical certificates to that effect?
She has provided medical certificates for her absences in the past.
Okay. No, thank you.
Very well. Re-examination?
Thank you, Justice. The state will not ask questions in re-examination. That will be the last witness on behalf of the state in relation to this first part of the proceedings.
Thank you, Counsel. Dr. Kinosi,
Justice.
you were not the HOD when all of this happened. You are now. Although we all know that de facto you are the CEO of Steve Biko Academic Hospital, what do you have to say about all this? You are the executive head of the department now.
Yes.
And look where we are. Well, is there anything that you would like to say?
Justice, you're asking a very difficult question. Well, if you're asking about the seat and how it is, I can tell you that it's not a seat that for the faint-hearted. You would remember that over and above this tragedy, the Department of Health in any province is not one of the easiest to run at all, because of the pressures and the number of employees, the number of institutions that we have to handle. The health of a country, I think, is an important aspect of taking care of any nation. And the Department of Health in Gauteng is even more so, simply because of the huge numbers. We've got the largest number of people of every province. We're the smallest in surface area, and we are squeezed. We've got lots of trauma, all car accidents and gunshots that you see on the road end up with us. And so the financial pressures, the resources pressures are high. So with this tragedy, I think it made things doubly worse, because to stabilize the situation post the Ombuds report on the 1st of February itself was a full-time occupation. So if you have to double it with having to continue running the department and looking after the health of the people of Gauteng, all 13 to 14 million of them, I think it was not easy at all, and it's not easier now. Things have stabilized, but we have managed. It was with a team also that was wounded. I think more than one council referred to project teams, and that project team actually consists of the actual people who should be running the Department of Health. And when they become moribund or cannot be and they are afraid, and they're all worried, and they are all tense and apprehensive, the whole department becomes paralyzed. And so that's why you would understand that it hasn't been easy to sort out all these other issues.
Is your
But,
staff afraid of you?
I hope not, Justice. I'm not anyone to be afraid of. I don't have that personality. I don't wish I had such a personality. I deal openly with all my colleagues in the department, and we indeed within the Gauteng Provincial Department and National Department of Health.
Do you tell them that it is quite in order to dissent from your superior? You see, the question comes from Mr. Musinogi, who was near tears about how he could never find the strength in his words to speak truth to power. He never had the strength to say, this should not happen. Instead, he implemented this horrendous scheme.
I think it would be wrong to have leadership that people are scared of. Yes, leadership needs to be respected, but leadership needs to be engaged. And I think as government, we would like to be that kind of leadership that can be engaged by the labor movement, by our staff, but indeed and most importantly by the people that we serve. So this is not a Department of Health for the MEC or the head of department or the premier. It is the Department of Health for the people of Gauteng. And we need to portray that kind of leadership. And
And do you encourage them to work with civil society? You see,
Yes.
the MEC in the papers before us referred to Section 27 and SADC as treacherous, sneaky, what? Dishonest. When they were pressing on, showing the dangers of going on with this project, drawing attention to the risk. And we have it in one of the minutes where she actually called them, this civil society organizations are dishonest. Do you encourage them to engage with people and to listen honestly to their true needs? Because vulnerable people have needs,
yes,
critical needs.
yes.
You and me are a little like here, but there are people who depend only on the state and nobody else.
Justice, I wouldn't speak for the previous MEC, but as part of leadership for now, I would like to say that my doors are always open, and I engage freely with those who would like have anything to say. And a lot of the family members have approached me. They've approached the current MEC, they've approached some of the managers who have been open. But it hasn't been easy, as I say, because as a management team, we have, I wouldn't say divided, but we have not been working on full strength up to now, because some of them are still wounded and traumatized by the whole process. Some feel that they could have handled things better. There could be sense of guilt. There could be sense of fear, and the fear of anything happening to them. We've referred to criminal action that might be taken. And I think we've spoken about disciplinary actions here, and it's not only here that it's been spoken about. So as a result, people are not working at full steam as they should, but we encourage everybody to do that. And my leadership style is that one of inclusivity, and it's not only our managers, but also the people that we serve. Okay.
The last point I'm engaging with is, you heard from questions from various council. There's an insinuation that senior state management does not hold to account those who breach management codes, the law, and the constitution, and that you're soft on holding feet of people to the fire when it is justified. What do you want to say about that? Because I think these are important assurances, particularly to the families, that there's not going to be an attempt to have it all behind us quickly. Are you going to insist on full accountability?
Yes. Justice, I think it is understandable whenever there's something has gone wrong, that the community or people out there, members of the public, would like to see justice done as soon as possible. And I think it doesn't happen only in this case, but also with our criminal justice system as well. And that's why at times you see citizens taking the law into their hands. But then, of course, there are procedures to be followed, Justice. And in all cases, investigations have to be done properly so that we don't do anything hastily that would end up working against us. So investigations are continuing, and I think this is part of the process that we'll want to find out exactly what happened. And so it is quite a helpful process, this the ADR process. And I think all of us, not just government, not just the public, will be clearer to the answers that we've been seeking all along.
Thank you. For my part, I think I want to add, when we prepared for this, you were very diligent, dedicated, and very honest in your efforts. And I've no doubt you're going to help us push through all this, because you are a vital partner in this process that's going on. And I'd like to thank you for the work you've done up to now. There's much more to be done, clearly. Well, it's going to bring us the proceedings for today. I thought about it again. I think I must place it on record that Dr. Kinosi and I went to the same school, same high school, at just about the same time. And he went to medical school and I went to law school on some island. So I just want to put on record, somebody must not stumble into this and say, uh-oh, he didn't tell us that they grew up in the same village of Atteridgeville and went to the same high school, Hofmeyr High, and they've known each other for 40 years. So I just want to put that on record. And he's a stellar doctor. He's a very... No, he didn't go to Robben Island. He ran away when we went to Robben Island. But it's turned out to be a very good doctor, and he runs an academic hospital called Steve Biko, and now acting HOD. But I want all of you to know that we've known each other for 40 years, and we went to the same school. Thank you ever so much. We're going to adjourn till Monday at 9:30. Thank you.
Yeah, Justice?